I found myself. I found myself later in life, and as I have gotten older, I have found myself even more. So
You found yourself. Why do you use that word, you found yourself?
I've realized that my intelligence, my ability to speak, despite the fact I've not been very eloquent for this thing, but anyway, my ability to speak, my ability to write is really profound. And that I have something to give. I mean, the fact that, because I'm very political, and and I write letters. And
Sent to newspapers.
And when Trump first came into office, and he had his first press conference, and he was treating the press terribly, I said, I'm going to write about that. I'm going to write the New York Times. And what do I know about the New York Times? So I sent him a letter, and it got published.
Wow.
And I think I've had 12 or 13 letters published in the New York Times over the years.
Wow. So I feel like
And
you can make this
yeah,
sound heard.
Yes. And when the first impeachment trial happened, wrote another letter, and 2 people, someplace in the United States, read my letter, found my address, and wrote me a thank you letter back.
Yeah.
That was astounding to me, and it is why I do it. It's not easy getting a letter in the New York Times. This time around, I've just got a letter in the New York Times about the Graham Plattner debacle. But I want to write one about Susan Collins. Those who are thinking people in the state of Maine do not like her. She's 30 years, she's been a senator. So anyway, I want to write a letter to our local paper, but I have to be careful that I use my letter wisely, because I probably won't get more than 1 letter
That's true.
between now and the election. That's really good. For a long time, I've had I call it my alphabet soup. It's the mental health challenges that I've had that have, over the years, become clearer about what they are. So part of my finding myself was doing the work I needed to do in counseling to be able to mitigate the effects of those mental health issues. For example, I was diagnosed, and I still wonder if it's accurate, but anyway, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Therapists say is the toughest. I can't tell you all the bits and pieces of borderline, but it is one of its characteristics is a difficulty in seeing how you appear in the world. So I was kind of blind. I didn't know how I was. I didn't necessarily see how people were reacting to me. So I would sort of flounder. I also have pieces of OCD, but it's an OCD 2, it's not OCD 1. And then I have pieces of sort of bipolar. I've gone through really significant depressions in my life where I've been hospitalized.
Wow, was it starting when you were a teenager? Or?
No, it started the first time I went into the hospital, I was in my late 20s. Several more times after that.
Several more times.
And it was always triggered by some stupid relationship I had with some stupid guy where they said, no thank you, we're not interested anymore.
Oh, you feel you're dumped. Oh.
Right, so it was like, these devastations,
Oh, and it's like a trigger. Then,
right, yes, it's like a trigger. And I still sometimes struggle with it. I still sometimes...
Who's not? Like everyone.
Exactly, of course, yes. Everybody has their challenges. I think that a lot of my ability to see and accept who I am came from the students I taught. So I taught high school special education for kids who were pretty involved. I didn't have kids who couldn't bathe themselves or dress themselves, but I did have kids who needed 24/7 care, some of them.
Wow.
I had some kids who were perfectly capable of taking care of themselves and lived independently after they graduated, but could not really function well in regular classes. The modifications would have had to...
I had those kids before when we were teaching.
Yeah. And what they taught me, especially the more complicated kids, is that we are who we are.
We are who we are.
And we use the tools we have to our best of our ability to get from point A to point B.
To survive in this
Yeah,
world.
survive. I mean, the analogy I give a lot is if I'm told to dig a hole and somebody gives me a plastic spoon, I'm going to dig the best hole I can using a plastic spoon. They also taught me that the idea of radical acceptance. Radical acceptance is from a form of therapy called dialectical behavioral therapy that was started by a lady named Marsha Linehan. Radical acceptance is the idea of I don't have to like it, I don't have to agree with it, I just have to accept that it is.
Accepting.
Yeah, and I love that idea. The idea of radical acceptance of my flaws and shortcomings, but also my students' their own flaws and shortcomings.
Yeah.
One of the reasons is I feel that I can deal with Philip so well is because of what my students taught me. I mean, right now is
His current stage is already like this, right? And
right.
he's
Yeah,
accepting.
I mean, it's when I visited him last week. Is that the brother I grew up with? No. But there is a soul in there that is consistent. If he could find his words, he would use his words.
Yeah.
But he can't. I think they're in his head. But he just can't find a way to get them out. Is it hard to see him? Yes and no. If I hadn't ever had my students, it would have been a very, very different thing. Because I would want him, I would be fighting myself to have him be the way he was. But he's not the way he was. In him now there is great joy. As with my students, there was great joy. So it's...
So you became a teacher
Yeah.
as your career.
Right. I was
After
always...
fighting with yourself and all those mental challenging
Right,
things.
yeah. I was always interested in the brain. There was a book called I Never Promised You a Rose Garden about a woman with, I think, schizophrenia. I loved that book. I read it and read it again. Another one called David and Lisa that was made into a movie, and my aunt, my mother's sister, worked on that film. She worked.
Wow.
There were films that were, New York had a film scene that sort of paralleled the one, but it was like the indie films. So you didn't necessarily have the big blockbuster people. And I just loved it. I loved the brain.
I'm gonna find out and see. Wow. Interesting. I got all those things in my list.
I think probably what I should have been is a social worker or a psychiatrist. I think I might have been better
Okay,
at that.
so if people ask you what's your career, you're gonna say you're a high school teacher or you're an artist or you're...
Good question.
Yeah.
I am all those things, but it took me a long time to say I'm an artist. A long time. And now I say it with conviction. I am an artist. I am also a poet. Love to get published, but maybe one day.
You will.
I have a poem about my mother. It's called A Portrait of My Mother in Shades of Heat. My mother was from one of the Carolinas, a sweet, soft place that smelled of balsam and black-eyed peas. Mornings would melt awake. Days in the South are pregnant with heat. Yet my mother never sweated. She glowed with pearls of perspiration like the luminous pearls she wore around her elegant neck that were gifted to her on her 16th birthday, handed from woman to girl for generations. In the sticky, heavy heat of the afternoon, my mother would gather with her circle of lady friends and sit in a white wicker lawn chairs in the blue shade of wide porches, drinking just sweet enough iced tea, maybe with a sprig of bright mint, or perhaps for reinforcement, a slug of scotch. The ladies would chitter-chat about family politics, and neighboring tattling tales, each too polite to speak anything in the proximity of truth and less buried inside a prayer. You know, her daddy was a drunk, God bless her heart. Days in the South are slow and dusty and ponderous with heat, and after an eternity they languidly fade into deep, dark, lugubrious nights, and in the puddles of the inky heat, katydids trill their love songs. Moths dance tangos with yellow porch lights, and mosquitoes sing shrill and whining arias to the moon.
Oh, beautiful.
So
So
that's
colorful images.
there's a little bit of storytelling in that, but there's grains of truth everywhere. She didn't have a pearl necklace that she gave
did
to her.
not.
No, she didn't, but she could have.
Could have.
And in the South, that's what they did, is that you would get a gift from your mother that you gave to your daughter.
Have you ever want to become a woman like her, or you want to be the opposite of her? Like
I didn't know my mother. She was, I didn't really know her. I knew her as mommy.
was she a good mommy?
She could be, yep. She could very much be there and present, and she tried hard to do things. I don't think she ever told me she loved me. She sent me a Valentine's card once that had a little creature on the front, and you opened up and the little creature was saying, I love you.
Oh,
So it was, she could tell me in a baby voice, but she couldn't just say, I love you. And I have made a point now of telling my brothers and sisters a lot that I love them, because it's so important to me. I know my parents loved me. My mother was a drunk and not available. My father was a philanderer.
somewhere else.
Yeah, he wasn't really present. But I loved my father. I loved his elegance. He was an amazing storyteller. He told wonderful stories, and he told them over and over and over again, so I know them by heart, about his family.
So he's like more like an idol to your children. Because
Sort of, yeah.
He
He
has
was-
perfect life for himself.
Yeah, I mean, yes. He felt one of the big lessons I got from my father, and it was a hard one, was that your role in any group of people is to entertain. And when you're done with entertaining, it is time to leave.
Wow, interesting.
And I saw once, I
He
saw that,
said that to you, or you learn it?
I think he said it to me.
Interesting.
Something along those lines. We went to a Christmas party after Mary had died, before he started really dating Anne, this woman's house, and we went there, and I watched him, being his charming, vibrant self, and suddenly it clicked off, and he was ready to leave.
That's
And he had a lot of anxiety about getting ready to leave. And that may have been the night that he told me about the entertaining thing.
Wow. It's like, movie's over, let's
Right,
go.
yeah, exactly. Great analogy. Movie's over, so let's go. I'm pretty satisfied with who I am. Like I said, I still struggle with stuff. My alphabet soup, I still struggle with it. But being married so late in my life, for the first time I was married at 62.
Were you desperate before that? Like,
No, I wasn't desperate. I had come to grips with this was my life. You live alone, that's just
much easier.
It's much easier, right? Much less complicated. But I found John, I fell in love with him, and I knew he loved me,
Oh,
which is really it really is a beautiful thing.
because you were so patient to wait for that guy.
Yeah,
And finally,
right.
finally, the God bless you. It's
Right,
like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
here.
So I waited a really long time. We always kiss. And one thing I love is he always goes to bed early, much earlier than I do. And usually what is we'll watch some TV and then I will go do the kitchen, and he will sit in his office, which is right there, and look at his emails and computer stuff. And then he'll say, "Okay, I'm going up now," and we will hold each other for a few minutes. Just hold each other. It's not a hug. I mean, there will be a kiss, but we just hold each other for a little while, and I love that.
Oh.
I love that. You know, John's a funny guy because he's going to say he hates schmaltz. Romantic something horrible. Turn it off right away.
Oh, wow.
This is another little romantic story.
Oh.
We walk in a cemetery, and one of the cemeteries had round iron-worked arches. And there might have been gates at some point, but anyway, the arches, there's one arch still there. And when we walk, and that's one of the many directions we can go, but when we choose that walk that goes under the arch, when we get under the arch, he gives me a kiss.
Oh, he's not afraid the ghost will come to attack.
No. He hates schmaltz, but he's really just
At the right time
right
to kiss my girl
Right, yeah.
at this place.
Right, and it's it's my wedding was a great wedding because we everybody was so happy I finally got married. I had some circles of friends, very definitely. I call them my sister friends, friends,
sister
women that I'm
friends.
very close to. Probably after my family, who I'd want at my wedding were my sister friends. And they came.
all came.
And they came, yes.
Aw.
They didn't know each other, but they're from different parts of my life. I'm very blessed to have those sister friends. And again, it's especially now that I have John in my life, I don't necessarily need to hang out the same way, but I can. I have two groups, and it's centered around one woman. My friend Kate, who I met when I was doing improv, which is the hardest thing I love to do. It's like theater without a script. There's a lot of games you play and getting ready for the skills of improv.
Wow.
And then
Sounds very fun.
It is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. You should see if you can.
Oh my God, I want to try, but I know my English is my boundary, but I would like to see it.
Your English is fine.
No.
You would do beautifully in an improv class. I met Kate, an improv group actually. We did do performances a long time ago. And in that group was also a guy who was in his late 70s then, now it's early 80s, and has come out as a trans woman at the age of 80. I just think it's fabulous. So Abby moved to Portland, Oregon 4 years ago. And Kate and I still live pretty close to here, but we, the three of us will get together on a Zoom call.
Oh, still?
Yes.
Wow, that's
not often,
sweet.
but maybe once every 2 months we get together. And it is just fabulous. I love it. And then Kate had another friend from Florida who she did improv with, and she said, "Joe, you'd really love Valeria. Let's do a Zoom thing." And so the three of us, Kate, Valeria, and I, will do a Zoom thing.
Wow.
Yep, just catch up.
Catch up.
So the last poetry class I took, which has an online element, was a small class. There were three of us. And the three students decided to continue our relationship, and we've met once by Zoom, and we're going to meet again tonight by Zoom. And we'll read poems we've written or little essays, and then give each other feedback.
Oh, wow.
And I'm really looking forward to that.
So I feel like you are actually still connecting to people.
Yeah.
Like you could find a friend from your class. You could find someone
Right,
just
yeah.
to fit you
Right.
from anywhere now, right?
Yes, it's delightful. And I have a good life right now.
Yay!
Yes,
Yay! Oh.
So this is such a telling story about my father. I was probably, it was after my mother had her stroke, just after my mother had her stroke. So I was maybe 19, 20, and that's a real sort of coming of age time. We're in the car. I think we were driving to see my mother in the nursing home or the hospital or wherever it was. And he says to me, he said, you know, your siblings, meaning Pierre, Philip, and Anne, are very attractive, he said. And you are, and he sort of paused and said, interesting. So here I am, 20-something, and I get from my father that I am interesting.
What did you respond?
I don't know what to respond.
What did you say?
I don't think I said anything.
Oh.
Now I would say
Maybe he was worried about you if you're gonna get married or not.
Yeah,
right?
well,
He's
he was, and
school.
he died before I got married. I really
He
wish.
died before.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
I wish he had
wish
met
he could-
John.
Yeah.
I really do.
But he kind of already met. He's somewhere there.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That this sort of journey, this whole journey has been. If I had to choose, there are kids who find themselves in high school, and then they sort of lose who they are in their life. I found myself in my later years, and that to me is far richer, far more profound. Partially because I'm so aware of this incredible gift I have of who I am and how I can connect with people.
Sorry to interrupt you, but what's the most difficult moment in your life, looking back? Like the darkest, you feel like the sun will never come for you.
The depressions I had. When I got to those places, one of the things I would do was I would not eat. So I had sort of anorexic type behaviors. I wasn't anorexic because that's far longer term. My heart breaks for anybody who is anorexic because it is hell. Yeah. Food is so essential to our lives. It's everywhere.
Lots of happiness, right? Not only the appetites, but also this is the desire.
And it's how we connect with people. It's how we express love is through food. And to be obsessed with food pretty much 24/7. To always have this, like, I wish I could eat something and I'm not allowed.
So your body, all the organs are running.
Right. Yes, yes,
of food.
yes. Yeah. It's a horrible place to be. And I would not wish that on anyone. And it's very, very dark. But after maybe the first or second one, after that, what I knew was that the depression was always finite. Things would change. I would get better. And I would want to be in this life again. Sometimes it happens slower than others, but it always happened.
The medication also helps, right?
And the medication and the therapy, all that sort of stuff.
Just in case someone was watching this moment, like someone has depressed, so it goes to medication.
Yeah. There's so much hope for things with mental illness. There has to be, I know I need to do work. It's not going to happen to me. It's going to happen because of me. And as overwhelming as it can feel, and I know what that feels like, I've always found, again, I've obviously never killed myself, and I never really wanted to. I wanted to harm myself, but I didn't want to kill myself, which is a very different dynamic. So what, life goes on. Life is linear. And you're constantly moving through it. So it's, for people I know who struggle with mental illness, it is really hard. And that's, if I had to give them one thing, it's the belief, the deep belief, knowing something will change. And the pain, the darkness that was at that moment won't necessarily extend forever. Because it feels like it does. I had a therapist who used to talk about being in depression like that was like being in infant time. Because an infant,
They don't really know anything.
right, when you leave, it's forever. When you come back, that's why there's such delight. There you are again. When you play peekaboo, you're gone. There you are again. There's joy. There's real joy. So infant time is not real time. So it's not, my darkness is not forever. It is for now. And what I have to do is to figure out how to move through it. You have to do something, work. Minutes. If I went off all my medication, if I stopped seeing my therapist,
You screwed it.
right, it could come back. My bioneurology is as in need of medication, say, as a diabetic needs their insulin. I hate being on medication. I am on so much, and
But
I'm
we
so
have to
tired
be
of it.
scientific, right?
Right.
It is,
Right, I need
it
to
is
take
what
right.
it is. Right?
Yeah. One of the things I hate about medication is that it tends to make me feel emotionally very flat. So I don't
Side
have
effect.
yeah.
So
You know, it's
you don't
it's,
cheer, you don't laugh.
it's not, I laugh and stuff. What I mostly don't do is cry.
Oh.
I wish I could cry, and I'm not a big I've never been a big crier. Here's another little
Did you
tidbit.
cry before the medication?
No, because this is what I was taught in my lovely
Mother.
family.
Oh.
When I would cry as a child, my mother would tell me to stop, and she would pinch me.
Oh, she didn't like it.
No, she did not like it. So I learned how not to cry.
Oh.
And I've never really, and then the medication sort of just tamps down those feelings. But, it's,
When was the last time you remember you cried?
a few years ago, when I found out about Philip having dementia, and at that same time, something else was happening with this girl I was mentoring. And I just was very sad, really sad, and I cried some then. When my students would cry, I would tell them you're washing your soul,
Oh.
because it's important to have that form of expression, but it's just...
But last, I want to talk a little bit about your art. You're the most creative artist I have ever seen. Creating so many things.
It happens despite me, not because of me. The collages, this sort of series I've been going through now for over a year, happened because of Philip. Because I wanted a way of connecting with him when he was so far away and not at home. I wanted to connect with him, and I started sending him, I was sending him a card a day, and then I decided I could make my own cards, and that's when I started doing the collages, a collage a day, and it was just overwhelming for him. So
He
I said,
loves it.
but it was too much. He didn't know what to do with all that stuff. And at that point,
He has to organize.
he had to organize it, right. And then, so I cut back to like once every 10 days or so, I'd send him one. And it was still too much. He just said, I don't know what to do with all this stuff.
Oh, he said that? Oh.
Yeah, pretty much he did. He did tell me. And that was when he had words. But I don't think he would, at this point, really take in what the experience was in a day. So that's fine. I was not hurt. I was not angry at all. But I really liked making the collages. And I like the process of looking for its image. And I usually start with a single image and then building onto it. Very often I will start with a single image, and it may or may not end up in the collage of the day.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I really like doing it. I like finding things that belong together, that were never together to begin with, it gives me a lot of satisfaction. It's
You have been doing this. You're
Yeah.
busy on doing this. How could that
it's-
happen?
it happened despite me. It really did. And I went through, because I get bored easily. That's part of my ADD. That's another part of my alphabet soup.
Also, it's a gift.
Yeah, it can be. It very much can be. Absolutely. So I go through these iterations. This is the most disciplined I've been. Creating these collages has been the most disciplined I've been. And we'll see. On the 19th, I'm going to be part of a street art fair, and I'm going to bring my collages. I'm going to keep them in the book. I'm going to have a couple in frames. We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe people will buy them, maybe not.
Oh, yeah.
But it's very exciting to get them in a magazine.
Yeah,
It's really
yeah,
exciting.
yeah.
But it's work. You know, you have to, if you're going to have that happen, you have to be disciplined, and I'm not very disciplined. I get so distracted so
I think
quickly.
it's also good because let's looking back to many years ago, your father and your mother would not really discipline you.
No, they didn't.
They're basically not really looking after you.
There's
Right.
art in my father's side. There's artists.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I see. So the genes from there.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
also,
yeah. My writing comes from my mother.
Or-
We had rules. We had lots of rules.
but on your art part,
No.
they don't discipline
no,
you.
and I didn't believe I was an artist for many years.
Nobody said you're so artist, like
No.
you're so creative. No? Even
And
your
it's-
dad didn't know you're gonna become artist?
No,
Really?
he would
What's his expectation on you?
that I am bright, that I'm articulate, that I'm educated, that I can hold my own in a conversation, that I can have a conversation.
Okay.
Those were the things that were really important.
Oh my gosh. Now I think he's very proud of you. Look at this.
Yes, I know, yeah. But I found John, I fell in love with him, and I knew he loved me.